Picture a quiet cafe just before dawn. The city is asleep, but the baker is already working the dough, counting the minutes, watching the heat, checking the yeast. Bread is simple until it isn't. Too much heat and it burns. Too much water and it collapses. Too much yeast and it grows fast, then falls flat. Economies are like that bread. They rise and fall on forces that are both visible and invisible. And when the balance is off for too long, something breaks. If you've ever felt the fear of opening a bank app and wondering whether the money you worked for still holds its meaning, you've glimpsed the emotional core of this topic. How does a whole country go broke? Not overnight, not because of one evil person or one bad law, but because the ingredients that make prosperity, productivity, trust, fairness, money itself, get out of balance for long enough that people stop believing the bread will rise tomorrow. Today, I'm inviting you into a long, reflective conversation based on Ray Dalio's research and frameworks about how economies work and why nations succeed or fail. Dalio has spent decades studying debt cycles, currency power, and the repeatable patterns of history. He calls them principles because they're less about predicting one headline and more about seeing the rhyme that plays beneath every era. This is not just about charts, it's about human nature, about our stories of hope and fear, about the instincts that make us powerful builders and at times careless borrowers. Here's the promise for our time together. You will not just learn the mechanics of how countries get into trouble, you will learn to see the signals earlier in your life, your work, and your money. You will learn why debt so often feels like a gift when it first arrives and a chain when it finally tightens. You'll learn how productivity, education, and the rule of law protect ordinary people like you and me from storms we cannot control. And you'll learn how to build personal resilience, diversified, humble, prepared, so that even when the big machine wobbles, you still have your footing. This is not a fear story. It is a clear story. Because clarity is what we need when headlines scream and friends panic and the temptation is to copy the crowd that is running the fastest in the loudest direction. By the end, you will have a map you can hold on to, a way to turn global complexity into personal action, and a few questions to test your own thinking the next time the world feels noisy and you need to be calm. Ray Dalio's work emphasizes that economies are machines and they're run by people who have emotions and incentives. Short-term cycles of 5 to 10 years feel like breathing, in and out, expansion and recession. Long-term cycles of 50 to 75 years feel like generations, the rise and fading of empires, the gaining and losing of trust in a currency, the widening and narrowing of gaps between people. Countries go broke in his telling when too much debt grows faster than the income needed to support it, when money is created faster than productivity, when internal conflict overwhelms cooperation, and when external competition exposes the weaknesses that were easy to ignore in the good times. That's the arc. But arcs are made of moments, and moments require choices. So let's travel through those choices and make them personal. Let's start with the most basic truth. Income must exceed spending over time. It sounds insulting in its simplicity, but it is the line that nations cross softly, not with a bang. A government has promises to citizens, to retirees, to the military, to the bridges and schools that make life work. When the bill comes due and income from taxes and growth is not enough, borrowing fills the gap. First, debt is a bridge that connects the present to a better future. If the borrowed money builds productivity, better education, better infrastructure, better rules of the game, then the future can repay the debt with interest. But if the borrowed money funds consumption, papering over problems instead of solving them, then each new loan is a vote of no confidence in tomorrow. You can feel this in your personal life too. A credit card used to start a profitable business can be a wise risk. The same card used to pretend you're fine when you're not is a slow, quiet kind of danger. Ask yourself, when I borrow time, money, attention, am I building something that makes me stronger, or am I hoping tomorrow will be kinder than today without giving it a reason to be? The second truth is that money is not wealth. Productivity is wealth. Money is a claim on stuff. Productivity is the ability to make stuff. In the short run, if you print money, it can look like wealth because people spend more and the system feels warmer. In the long run, if printing money outpaces the creation of real goods and services, the value of each unit of money falls. Prices rise, people feel poorer, even as the numbers in their bank accounts get bigger. Dalio's research shows this pattern again and again. Nations with fading productivity, aging infrastructure, weak education, and confused rules begin to lean on the printing press. The press works until people notice the trick, and then it stops working suddenly. When it breaks, it's not a spreadsheet problem, it's a trust problem. Do you still trust that the paper in your hand or the digits on the screen will buy what you need next month? Think about your own life. Are you investing more attention in appearances or in ability? Are you building skills that produce real value regardless of the fashion of the day? When the music pauses, the people with practical competence, those who can build, fix, explain, coordinate, and serve, still have a line outside their door. The third truth is that debt has a beautiful side and a brutal side. The beautiful side is leverage. With the right project, debt accelerates progress. The brutal side is compulsion. When payments rise faster than income, the math becomes a trap. Dalio describes the ways out of big debt crises as a combination of levers. There is austerity, which means spending less. There is restructuring, which means changing the terms of the debt. There is wealth transfer, which means taxes or policies that move resources from some groups to others. And there's printing money, which spreads the pain across currency holders. None of these are painless. The art of policy is mixing them in a way that shares the burden fairly, restores trust, and protects the engine of productivity. In your life, the same levers exist. You can cut spending. You can renegotiate terms. You can accept help or share the load within your family or community. You can increase the money supply in a different way by adding a new income stream, a skill, a product. And you can ask yourself a hard question. Where am I expecting a painless fix when the honest path is a disciplined season of repair? Another principle is the role of internal order. Dalio's historical work suggests that widening wealth and values gaps make cooperation harder. When people feel the system is rigged, they stop investing in it. They hoard, they fight, they vote for extremes, and they simplify complex problems into enemies and slogans. When trust in institutions drop, the cost of everything rises because coordination becomes a struggle. Courts take longer, regulations become confusing, projects stall. That is how a country quietly taxes itself through friction. You can feel this at work when teams don't trust each other. Simple decisions require long meetings. Emails grow defensive, deadlines slip. If you lead a team, tending to trust is not a soft skill. it's productive infrastructure. And if you're a citizen, your daily choices either improve or degrade the civic fabric. Pay attention to how you talk about people who disagree with you. Are you inflaming a gap or building a bridge? In the long run, cooperation is a growth strategy. Then comes external order, the competition between great powers. Reserve currency status is like being the world's default setting. If your country issues the money everyone else uses to trade and save, you get special privileges. You can borrow more cheaply, run deficits more easily, and project influence more widely. But that status is earned and maintained, not guaranteed. Historically, leading powers build strong education systems, innovate at the frontier, protect property rights, keep their debts manageable, and maintain social cohesion. When those pillars weaken, rivals rise. It doesn't flip in a day. It changes in a series of subtle votes by millions of actors. Investors move a little money elsewhere. Manufacturers open a factory in a different place. Students choose to study somewhere new. Central banks adjust the mix of reserves. If you find this too abstract, think about brand dominance in business. A brand is the reserve currency of its niche. Customers default to it because it's safe and easy. But if quality slips and competitors improve, the market retests its loyalty. A few customers switch, a few influencers speak up. The brand doesn't fall that year, but the slope has changed. Where are you assuming a privilege you haven't recently earned? Where are you living on the fumes of yesterday's reputation? Debt cycles also carry an emotional pattern that affects all of us. In the early stages of a boom, optimism grows. Borrowing feels smart because prices keep rising. Homes, stocks, and assets of all kinds seem to always be worth more next quarter. Then leverage builds, often invisibly. Payments as a percentage of income rise. Banks get comfortable and then careless. People who feel left behind join late because fear of missing out feels worse than fear of loss. When a shock hits, interest rates increase, a default cascades, or a war breaks out, the cycle flips. Assets fall, credit tightens. People who were brave on the way up become quiet on the way down. Dalio's point is not to shame these emotions. It's to respect them. If you respect that you are human, you design guardrails. You diversify so that one asset can't take you down. You avoid leverage you do not fully understand. You build a written plan that tells you, in calm times, what you will do in tense times. You separate your identity from the performance of any one investment so that you can cut losses when you must without feeling like a failure. Ask yourself, what rule could I write today that would save me from my future self under pressure? Here's a related idea: the difference between liquidity and solvency. Liquidity is about timing. You have valuable assets, but you need cash now, and you don't have it. Solvency is deeper. It means even if we wait, the assets will not be enough to cover the debts. Countries often pretend solvency problems are liquidity problems because the former requires structural change. The same happens at kitchen tables. We tell ourselves, I just need a bridge loan through this month, when the truth is, I am spending more than I earn and have been for a long time. Honesty hurts for a minute. Denial hurts for years. When you review your finances, do you ask, if all my debts called today, would I still be okay? If the answer is no, your priority is to reduce fragility. That might mean selling something sooner than you'd like, or downgrading your lifestyle for a season to upgrade your long-term freedom. Dalio also shows that policy choices are often constrained by math and politics. If a government raises rates to fight inflation, it cools the economy and reduces asset prices. If it lowers rates to spur growth, it risks inflation and weakens the currency. If it tries to do both, spend heavily and keep rates low while growth is limited, the currency often takes the brunt of the stress. Households feel this at the grocery store. Entrepreneurs feel it when import costs rise. Savers feel it when real returns go negative. There is no magic setting that makes everyone happy. There are trade-offs. Wise leaders explain the trade-offs and seek broad buy-in so that the pain is shared and the outcome is durable. In your own life, trade-offs run the show, too. If you spend more time at work, you have less time with your family. If you chase one dream, you quietly abandon others. Pretending the trade-off isn't real leads to resentment. Naming it leads to peace. What trade-off are you pretending you don't have to make? We can't talk about countries going broke without talking about trust in the currency itself. Money functions because we agree that it does. When a government creates too much of it relative to what the economy can produce, prices rise. If people believe the rise is temporary and disciplined measures are in place, trust holds. If people begin to believe the rise is structural, they seek havens, other currencies, real assets, commodities. The shift can be gradual, then sudden. Think of your own reputation as your personal currency. When you keep your promises, people hold your words as valuable. When you break them, people price in a discount. Say you'll deliver in a week and deliver in 2 days, your currency strengthens. Say you'll deliver in a week and deliver in a month with excuses, your currency weakens. If that continues, people will still smile at you, but they will quietly transact elsewhere. Integrity is not just moral, it's economic. What about the warnings that a country is sliding into trouble? Dalio pays attention to debt service burdens relative to income, fiscal and current account deficits, the slope of the yield curve, credit spreads, capital flows, and the tone of political conflict. If those feel technical, let's translate. If the share of national income devoted to interest is rising fast, less is left for everything else. If the country is importing more than it exports and borrowing the difference, it depends on foreign goodwill. If long-term lenders demand much higher returns than short-term lenders, they do not trust the future. If investors require big premiums to hold corporate or government debt, they smell risk. If money is leaving the country steadily, people with quiet information are choosing elsewhere. If political debates are turning into purity tests and threats, coordination is at risk. In your life, the indicators are simpler. If your minimum payments take a bigger bite each month, your flexibility is shrinking. If your income is dependent on one customer or one platform, your resilience is thin. If people closest to the data, your mentors, your most experienced friends, are making cautious moves, pay attention. If your relationships are marked by escalation rather than repair, you are building a fragile system. The cure is not panic. The cure is a change in posture from assuming growth to earning it. Dalio famously argues that studying many cycles across centuries helps you see what's coming without drama. He looks at the rise and fall of empires and finds recurring stages, a period of strong leadership and shared purpose, rapid productivity gains, widespread education and innovation, rising competitiveness, growing wealth that eventually produces gaps, increasing borrowing to maintain living standards, internal conflict, external rivalry, and either a renewal that reforms the system or a decline that yields the stage to someone else. Your own life has versions of these stages. You have seasons of discipline, rising mastery, and then, if you're not vigilant, a sense that you can coast on what you've already built. Complacency is the soft beginning of decline. Renewal means returning to first principles: sleep, health, learning, humility, community, service. It means asking, where did I stop doing what made me strong? Let's get even more practical. If you are building your personal resilience in a world of cycles, consider multiple layers of defense. Keep a sensible cash buffer, not because cash is a great investment, but because liquidity buys time and options during shocks. Spread your bets across different assets. Now, for a moment, imagine yourself as the finance minister of a country that's drifting toward trouble. Your debt has climbed, inflation is stubborn, and growth is uneven. What do? You tell the truth. You publish a credible plan that the markets can understand and measure. You slow spending where it doesn't create productivity. You target investments where they will increase the economy's ability to produce: skills, infrastructure, fair rules. You build consensus so that changes survive elections. You protect the most vulnerable citizens while asking everyone to share the burden. You explain that the value of the currency is not just the central bank's job. It's a mirror of the nation's habits. Then you do the hard thing next month and the month after that, until the numbers start telling a new story. The same approach works at home. Create a visible plan. Measure it. Tell the truth to yourself and the people affected. Protect the essential. Cut the nice-to-haves. Build capacity. Stick with it long enough to see the curve bend. Let's return to the emotional ground, because money talk without heart lands shallow. When countries go broke, the pain is not abstract. It shows up as medicine that costs more than a pension check. It shows up as young adults who cannot imagine buying a home. It shows up as talented people leaving, as neighborhoods fraying, as businesses giving up. But history also shows that renewal is possible when people decide to build more than they complain. In every crisis, you can find the local heroes who turn a gym into a school, a warehouse into a hub, a small grant into a courageous experiment. If you've ever rebuilt after a personal crisis, you know the feeling. You choose discipline over drama. You accept that this is the work now. And a year later, you realize that your character was compounding in the dark. I want to give you a handful of questions to carry into your week. Where in your life are you borrowing from the future without a clear plan to repay with growth? What skill, learned diligently over the next 12 months, would make you far less fragile regardless of the macro environment? Which expense looks small but signals a habit that keeps you stuck in a story you no longer want? Who are the people you could partner with to build something real beyond speculation and status? What is one area where you can choose clarity over narrative, looking at actual numbers, actual calendars, and actual commitments instead of the fog of wishes?